So if you think like, oh man, I'm just the type of person who can never lose weight, if you repeatedly tell yourself that, that's your identity. You are a person who cannot lose weight. So every January that person starts a weight loss program, they will never lose weight because their identity is associated with a person who cannot lose weight. But if you switch that to, I'm the type of person, I'm a healthy person who eats really well and doesn't overeat and exercises regularly. That's who I am. That's the type of person I am.
Came up from the bottom to the top. Henny on his gun and never stop. And he always punching in the clock. In the clock.
I'm super excited to do this with you. And as you know, I was introduced and we were talking about how we're going to help you get more done. And the reason why I am so obsessed with helping folks like you get more done is because I went through a real rough patch about 15 years ago. So the worst day of my life was 2006. It was January 1st, and I had just woken up with a big hangover. And I had been working for 2 weeks straight and going out every night for 2 weeks straight. And you know, like what's going to happen when you end up doing that is you're going to be totally physically exhausted. And that manifested in me in an anxiety attack. So it literally felt like I was like having a heart attack all day long. And I lived in a tiny little apartment in Toronto, Ontario at the time, and it was 400 feet. And I was pacing back and forth for 11 straight hours, thinking that I was going to die. And I was like thinking all these crazy thoughts, like, oh my gosh, my mom's going to be so embarrassed, you know, when the obituary comes out, you know, lonely man dies alone on January 1st. And like, I literally thought I was dying. And so at about 11 o'clock that night, you know, I decided to give up. I walked outside, and, you know, in Toronto in the wintertime, it's very cold. I walked outside, but as soon as I walked outside, I already felt 10% better. And then I hailed this cab. You know, the streets were dead. Sunday night, 11 o'clock on January 1st, everybody's recovering. And I hailed this cab and I said, please take me to the emergency room. That's all I said. I didn't even know which hospital and nothing. But as soon as I said that, I felt 20% better, which is really weird, right? Like saying, you know, getting in a car and going to the emergency room, but just talking to people made me feel a little bit better. So I get to the emergency room, I walk in, again, 11 o'clock at night, it's empty. And I walk in and you know, there's this guy, he's like, I don't know if he was reading, but he's around my age and he kind of is like this, you know, arms crossed. And I walk up to him and he's like, what are you doing here? You're interrupting me. And I said to him, I think I'm having a heart attack. And he looked, like his face totally changed. He went from, and he's like, oh, okay, we got to get you to the back right away. And so they got me to the back right away. They had the nurse come over, ask me a bunch of questions. And I felt so much better. And within an hour, you know, I was quote unquote cured of the heart attack, which was really an anxiety attack. And then I went and I started doing yoga and meditation and all of these things. And it went away for a while. And then sure enough, I got back to my old ways. I used to be like a classic frat boy binge drinker. And I had in March, about 3 months after that, I did another binge drinking session, stupid me. And on Monday morning, I had this like really dark, disturbing dream. It's just like, and I woke up with this sense of impending doom. And I had a tight chest, I had elevated heart rate, I couldn't breathe, I had tingling from the top of my head down to the end of my fingertips. And on that day, just to make matters worse, my building where I lived had a fire alarm. So there was all that stress. And that's when it started. And this time it was a 6-week heart attack. Literally felt like a heart attack for 6 weeks straight. I am not literally using the word literally in an unliteral way. I am literally telling you it was a 6-week heart attack. I could sleep from about 11 p.m. until 3 a.m. And then the anxiety would wake me up. And it was really difficult for me to go to bed. Asked me a bunch of questions. And I felt so much better. And within an hour, you know, I was quote unquote cured of the heart attack, which was really an anxiety attack. And then I went and I started doing yoga and meditation and all of these things. And it went away for a while. And then sure enough, I got back to my old ways. I used to be like a classic frat boy binge drinker. And I had in March, about 3 months after that, I did another binge drinking session, stupid me. And on Monday morning, I had this like really dark, disturbing dream. It's just like, and I woke up with this sense of impending doom. And I had a tight chest, I had elevated heart rate, I couldn't breathe, I had tingling from the top of my head down to the end of my fingertips. And on that day, just to make matters worse, my building where I lived had a fire alarm. So there was all that stress. And that's when it started. This time it was a 6-week heart attack. Literally felt like a heart attack for 6 weeks straight. I am not literally using the word literally in an unliteral way. I am literally telling you it was a 6-week heart attack. I could sleep from about 11 p.m. until 3 a.m. and then the anxiety would wake me up, and it was really difficult for me to go to bed. And the funny thing is that I was a personal trainer all this time. I was telling people how to live, how to eat, how to get better, how to improve their habits. And here I was hypocritically binge drinking on the weekends. And when you combine the hypocritical binge drinking on the weekend, and I'm also very introverted. So, I kept all my thoughts in my head. And so I let my anxiety engine rev, my mind race, and my wheels spin. Even if you never connected with anything that I said up until this point, you can probably connect with that. There's times in your day when you have stress and anxiety, and there's a lot of things, right? Like I don't know if everybody can mute themselves. I'm getting a lot of feedback. There's times in the day where your brain is bouncing from, call to call or deal to deal. You're bouncing around. Your mind's like a pinball. And of course, this thing doesn't help, right? Like this phone, all the apps, everything. You are getting into that state. And physiologically in our bodies, what happens when we have anxiety is, you may have heard, if you're a sports fan at all, you've heard, man, that guy's, so full of adrenaline. Adrenaline is what's called a fight or flight hormone. And that's good. It's good to be like having adrenaline in certain situations. Like when you close a deal, you've got more adrenaline in your body because you're all like pumped up. But if you're trying to calm yourself down, having a lot of adrenaline running through your body is a bad idea. Now you get adrenaline from Monster Energies, you get adrenaline from Starbucks, you get adrenaline essentially from caffeine or any stimulant, nicotine, and of course the illegal substances as well can drive up your adrenaline. Plus, anytime you're in a stressful situation, your body naturally releases it. So I was full of adrenaline all the time, and I had no idea how to calm myself down. So what I did was I went through a long journey, which I distilled down into my very short books and into this presentation today, that allowed me to go from overwhelmed and super anxious into being somebody who's able to, if I wanted to have a huge Starbucks, I'd have a huge Starbucks, and you could throw all the crazy things in the world at me and I'd never have another anxiety attack. So I have all these tools in my toolbox, but most of it starts with the ability to properly structure a day so that I get way more done than most people, and also to use the power of saying no so that I don't take on too much stuff. Plus, then I've been able to have a little routine at the end of the day that sets me up to make tomorrow super successful. So those are the things I'd love to teach you. And in about a couple of minutes, I can go through quite a few of them. Would I be able to share my screen? You get, somebody just said they felt like that, full of adrenaline a lot in the chat there. And the times in which you're going to have a lot of adrenaline, like if something happens to your kid, your adrenaline is going to go through the roof. If you're sitting in traffic and somebody cuts you off, your body naturally increases adrenaline. But here's the thing that most people don't know is that what we're doing right now, I can see almost everybody sitting down at their desk. And if we sit down and we have, regular work posture, we lean forward and we collapse our shoulders, our chest tightens up there. And what that does is that leads us into short and shallow breaths, short and shallow. And if you just breathe short and shallow, you end up breathing off a lot more carbon dioxide. You don't get a big full belly breath, lots of oxygen in. Instead, you're just a little bit of oxygen in, a lot of carbon dioxide out. And what that does is that causes your body to release adrenaline. So it's another stimulant on your body. So if you're sitting there and you've had a bad day, weren't able to close a couple deals, and you got all these emails coming in, and your phone is buzzing and binging, one of your kids is sick at school and you got to go pick them up, and you're sitting there in that bad posture, your adrenaline is going to be through the roof. So what you need to do, and this is going to be like a game changer for anybody that suffers from any type of stress or anxiety, is to totally reverse that in just a minute, is to sit there, sit upright, pull your shoulders back, breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. And you're going to do a 4-second inhale, fill up your belly, because that's one of the things I learned along the way, is that I was breathing improperly. I was breathing from my upper chest. I want to breathe in through my nose, fill that belly up, and then exhale for a 6 count. If you do that for 6 times, that's a minute of slow breathing. It's going to be like the weight of the world is taken off your shoulders. So simple stuff like that, which is not what I'm going to focus on, but simple things like that, especially when you're going from call to call to call, if that's, part of your job, and maybe you got off a stressful one. And I know I work with a lot of people who do cold calling and stuff like that. That's just a great reset. 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. There's another one where it's 4 seconds in, 7-second hold, 8 seconds out, and you go through that for a minute or two, you'll be calmed right down. You do that for 3 to 4 minutes, you'll be able to fall asleep faster. Okay, so I actually do that sometimes at night when I can't fall asleep. But what I want to share with everybody just really, really quick is that I want to give you I got a couple of tools here, but I want to share with you one tool that is so brain dead simple, and you don't need any fancy pages to do this. But by doing this time journal is going to show you 3 things that is just going to make an extra 10 hours per week for you. So if everybody can see my screen, just drop a 1 down in the chat below, just to make sure you guys can see my screen. That would be really, really great. And awesome, everybody's seeing it. So the time journal is going to show you where you're wasting time. It's going to show you where you're 3 times more productive and creative than any other time of day. And it's going to show you your hourly worth, which can be a real cold bucket of water to the face to most entrepreneurs that I work with. So I'm going to go through those one by one. I came up with the idea of doing a time journal 2 ways. One, when I was a personal trainer, everybody who came to me said, Craig, I want to lose weight. And I was like, great, we're going to do these workouts. We do these workouts, and they're working so hard. And after a couple of weeks, they're like, oh, I'm not losing any weight. And I go, well, what are you eating? Because nutrition is more important than the exercise. And they would say, oh, I'm sticking to my diet. It's perfect. I go, okay. Over the weekend and for a couple of days, just write down everything that you're eating and why you're eating it. Everything that you're eating and why you're eating it, how you feel when you're eating it. Because what most people do is we act out when we are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Write that down as HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. When you get upset with your kids or your spouse or a friend, you're either hungry, you're angry, you're lonely, or you're tired, right? We know we've all snapped on people when we've been tired, when we've been hangry, right? So it's the same with when we eat. You are either really hungry, or you're angry and you're stress eating, or you're lonely and so you're eating out of boredom, or you're tired and you're eating because you think that you need some sugar to pick you back up. So we would send people away and they would come back with these food journals filled out and they go, oh my God, I didn't realize how much I was eating. Plus, most people have no idea about the calorie counts of foods. If you go to Applebee's, you're eating almost your entire day's worth of calories in an appetizer. Like a calamari appetizer. I remember I used to go to Ocean Prime a lot when I lived in Denver, and Ocean Prime has this calamari appetizer that I looked it up on the internet, and it was 2,000 calories. And every time I went with my business partner, he would always eat the entire thing himself. It's 2,000 calories. You're probably only supposed to eat 2,800 calories a day, but most people have no idea what they're eating. So if they don't know what they're eating and they don't realize they're eating a lot more, there's no way they're going to lose weight no matter how good my workouts are. So we flip that over to the time journal. Hey, you say that you're working 8, 9, 10 hours a day, but what are you really doing all day long? And so a time journal, you can print this off, you can use a scrap piece of paper, and you're just going to write down, and you're probably going to need your little alarm on your phone to go off every 30 minutes and just write down what you're doing for every single hour that you're awake. You know, if you get up at 7 a.m., you don't have to get up at 5 a.m. 5 a.m. club is not meant for 90% of people. I can rant about that all day long. If you ever thought I'm a loser because I can't join the 5 a.m. club, you're not a loser. The 5 a.m. club is not for everybody. So if you get up at 7 a.m., you have an alarm that goes off every 30 minutes until you go to bed. And it's just, what am I doing right now? And why am I doing it? And what you'll find as you do this time journal is that you'll find you have a couple times a day where you're losing time into the matrix. And I call that one of my mentors called it the OCD loop. OCD loop. Like, we get into these behavioral patterns that just waste our time. For example, when I first did this in 2007, right after my anxiety attacks, I had an OCD loop. I was going to this website called ClickBank where I could look at my sales stats for my info products that day. Then I would go to Facebook, because Facebook was brand new back then, right? That was back when everybody would poke each other. So I was like, oh, who poked me today? And I'd go in there. Then I'd go into my email. Then I would go to ESPN.com, and I would go through that loop over and over and over again. And it's all of a sudden I'd go, whoa, where did 40 minutes of my life just go? And it was wasted on that. So we might have that with Netflix. We might have that with gossiping with friends. We might have that with Twitter. We might have that with Instagram, Facebook, all of these things that exist right now. If you can go to something called screen time on your phone and see how much time you spend on each one of those websites, it's shocking. It is shocking how much time most of us spend on those things. And if you use that screen time, you can work to cut that down over time. But most of the time, what you'll find is that just, stopping the negatives, stopping things from stealing your time are far more powerful than trying to add more good habits. And I learned that also from my time as personal trainer. Again, you can do the workouts 3 to 4 times per week. You can have your green smoothie 4 or 5 times per week. You can do, be pretty good during the week. But if you go to Applebee's on Friday night and you go to Chili's on Saturday night and you watch football all day Sunday and you consume calories sitting on the couch, the negatives far outweigh the positives. So what I realized when I was in the fitness industry, and this goes with our time as well, is that it's not trying to be better at the things where we are good. It's about protecting ourselves from the negatives. In life, if you have, if you're in an abusive relationship or if you have abusive friendship, you could do journaling and you could do meditation, but it doesn't matter how good the good things are that you do, as long as you remain in that completely toxic situation, it will drag you down more than you can ever lift yourself up. And that goes with your diet. That goes with your work habits. Like, if you drink 4 glasses of wine or 6 beers at night, it doesn't matter how good you get at sales calls. Doesn't matter how good your rapport building is. Doesn't matter how good you can close a deal. If you are a functional alcoholic, it will break you down over time. I know that. I know that from personal experience. And so it's removing the negative, destroying the distractions, tossing the toxic temptations and relationships in life is what will actually give you more results than trying to do even better at the good things. So look for the areas in which the time is being wasted, whether you're addicted to Netflix, whether 1 glass of wine becomes 3 glasses of wine every single night, whatever it is, it's the removal of that will have the greatest compound effect on your success in life almost every time. So that's what we find first, the OCD loops. Where are we losing our time in the day? The second thing, now we flip to the positive. I don't want to spend all the time on the negative. We flip to the positive, and the positive is there is a time of day that I call magic time. And this is different for everybody. Some people it's in the morning, some people are the night owls, some people middle of the afternoon, some people in the late morning. It's a time of day when you are 3 times more creative, productive, and energetic than any other time of the day. Some people call it being in the flow. Whatever it is, you must, through self-reflection and introspection, which is a key to success in life, you must identify your magic time. Now, I understand, I'm speaking with folks who are sales closers. Like, your job is like to align yourself with somebody else's schedule, to be on the phone with them and to do the calls. And so there is a certain aspect of your work that is outside of your control. But if your business includes creative work, if your business includes anything that generates leads for yourself, or if you're, you're in the beginning stages, as we were hearing somebody talk about at the start of this, there are people who need to be studying and really mentally focused on becoming a great salesperson. That's the type of activity that goes in your magic time. So again, the magic time is a time of day when you are 3 times more creative, productive, and energetic. And you need to match the intensity of the activity, the intensity and difficulty of the activity with your creativity, productivity, and energy. For example, for myself, I have written 3 books, these ones up here. And if anybody here has ever tried to write a book or has written a book or has even written 50 pages of something, it's bloody brutal. It is very, very difficult. If you want your book to be not only read, but appreciated, it is very difficult to write a book. My magic time is first thing in the morning. I would get up and I would sit at my computer and I would write first thing in the morning, every single day. And it was only because of that I was able to publish the first book, the second book, the third book. If I tried to write in the afternoon when my energy levels are lower, it would take me 3, 4, 5 hours to do the same amount of work that I was doing in my 90 minutes of magic time in the day. So step 1, self-reflection, introspection. Find the time of day when you are in the flow. And then figure out what activities need to be put into that flow time that are going to move you ahead in life. Now, if you're sitting there and thinking, well, I definitely am more creative, productive, and energetic from 7:30 a.m. till 9 a.m., but there ain't nobody getting on a sales call with me before 10 a.m. So what the heck do I do? Well, you would take a look at either your number one opportunity in life or the number one problem you need to solve in life, and you would spend that time thinking about it. So for example, if somebody, I talk to a lot of people who are in corporate jobs and they're like, well, my magic time is 7 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock at night. I'm not in the office. How can I possibly put this to work? And I go, well, what's the biggest problem in your life? Oh, I'm not, maybe I'm not in the relationship that I want to be in, or maybe I'm in $10,000 worth of credit card debt. Great. If you sat there every morning and worked on your $10,000 in credit card problem, like if you sat there and you brainstormed, like, how can I lower my expenses and how can I improve my income? You would do a whole lot better of getting rid of that credit card debt than trying to find time to do that at some other time of day or some other time in your life. Like there's a reason why, I don't know, it's just on my page here. I'm going to stop sharing and then reshare for a sec. It was just coming up a little wonky on my page. Like this presentation is called How to Make Time for Millions. It's not called How to Find Time. You don't find time for things that matter. You got to make time. Okay. You don't find time. It's not hidden under the bed with the ab rocker that you bought back in 1998. You have to make time for what matters. Okay. So you make time for what matters. And if you make time, if you find that magic time, you identify where that magic time is, and then you avoid any distractions in that time. And then you actually do deep thinking, you will really move ahead in life. Okay. If you're struggling to close deals, you spend that magic time studying and practicing and really brainstorming on it. You'll get so much better at deals and trying to find time to get better. So the third thing, and then I'm going to end here. The third thing, and we can do questions or I can teach you more because I got a lot more to teach you. But the third thing that you're going to learn from this is your hourly worth. So I'm going to do a little skill testing question with everybody here. Okay. If somebody makes $100,000 in a year and they work 50 weeks per year and they work 40 hours per week, how much money do they make per hour? Quick, type it in the chat down below. $100,000 in a year and they work 50 weeks a year and they work 40 hours a week. I'll give you a quick shortcut. You just divide it by 2,000. Okay. So, or you flip it and you go, if somebody makes $100,000 in a year, that means to make $50 an hour, because if you go $50 an hour times 2,000, you get 100,000. Now so Brandon had it there. So I used to work in a factory when I was in college in the summertime. I'd go home to the little town where I grew up, and my mom worked at this factory and she got me a job there. And I saw these people making like $18 an hour. This is 1998. You can make $18 an hour at McDonald's these days. But back then in 1998, people were making $18 an hour. And I'm like, $18 an hour? I'm making like 9. How much money would they make in a year if they made $18 an hour? And then I realized it's just basically double what they make per hour and then times it by 1,000. 50 weeks, 40 hours. That's a great way. So anyways, I just did that because what most people do is they walk around and they're bragging about, yeah, I make 200 grand a year, I make 250, I make, 175. Okay, great. But that doesn't actually tell me how much your hourly worth is. Because if you're working 75 hours a week to make $150,000, you're not really making that much per hour. Like, you shouldn't be bragging about that. So over to you. The question is, or actually after you do this, you'll figure out how many hours you work. So you might identify yourself and realize like, oh my goodness, I'm working 55 hours a week because, maybe I'm only doing 30 hours of calls, but I've got 15-minute breaks in between. I'm just kind of diddling my thumbs here. And like, the time I spend sitting in this chair is 55 hours a week. And, my take home last year was $250, but it's like 55 hours. And I only took 1 week off. Man, my hourly worth is not where it's at. So I need to do something better with my time. And usually I'm speaking to entrepreneurs who are like editing their own videos, running to FedEx, doing all this stuff that I call $10 an hour tasks. $10 an hour tasks, because you could go and find somebody, well, now you can't really get them for $10, but you can go and, well, you can get somebody to edit your own videos on Upwork for $10. But most of the things that people do in their lives, including mowing their lawn and all the personal stuff that somebody else is willing to do for a fraction of your worth, that you should be outsourcing and delegating and all of that stuff so that you can work in your zone of genius. Like, if you're spending 2 or 3 hours, cutting the lawn and doing maintenance and all that stuff, and you don't enjoy it, if you enjoy it, have at it. But if you don't enjoy it and it's taking you 3 hours, and that means you miss out on 2 sales calls where you could have closed the deal and made $500, $1,000 commission, you've got your priorities all messed up. And that's the bad use of your time. So you got to make time for your calls, you got to make time for your training, and you have to find somebody else to do those other things. So it's just a totally different way of looking at time. When people talk about time management, I say, no, thank you on time management. I want time ownership. I want to own my time. I'm going to own my time. I'm not going to manage it. I'm not going to rent it out. I'm going to own my time, and I'm going to be very ruthless with how I use my time. So I want to get people thinking different there. The question was, what's the formula for finding your hourly worth? It's taking your personal income in a year and then dividing it by how many hours you work in a year, right? So by doing the time journal, let's say you do this for a week and you go, well, I'm working about an average of 40 hours a week. Great. How many weeks of holidays did I take? Probably worked I took only 2 weeks of holidays. So yeah, in theory, I worked about 50 weeks. That's 2,000 hours. So you can take your annual income and divide it by 2,000. Now, if you take 6 weeks of holidays, it's a totally different story, and you just have to figure that out. But thanks, Brandon. I appreciate you putting that in there. So I jump back in here now, and we're going to move on from the daily time journal. Now, this next page, don't get freaked out by it. Cassandra, more teaching. Yes, I can bring it. Okay, so don't get freaked out by this. All you need to do is have the blank page down below. So if you have a page in front of you, if you're driving, don't do this unless you're driving a Tesla. You can probably pull it off. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that. But if you're just sitting at your desk, just take a blank piece of paper and draw what's called a 7x7 grid, Monday through Sunday across the top, and then 7 blocks down the side. And it's like 2 to 3 hour blocks. We're just going to put together a rough, perfect week formula. And the perfect week formula, the whole purpose of this is signified by the 12 words down at the bottom. Build your business around your life, not your life around your business. Build your business around your life, not your life around your business. What that means is, well, let me put it this way. Everybody here has probably ordered something from Amazon in the last little bit. What does everything from Amazon come in? A box. So imagine your week as a box. And inside that box fits 168 hours. That's how many hours there are in a week. So everybody starts with an empty box for their week ahead. What most people do is, especially this is what I did as a young man when I had those anxiety attacks. is I would take all my work hours and I would put them in the box, and I would fill my life box, my hours box with work. And then I would try and like stuff a little bit of life into there. That's the wrong way of going about it. That's not how a professional athlete treats themselves. Professional athlete has all this, training, recovery, nutrition, massage, all of this stuff. They're taking care of themselves so they can go out and perform at a high level. But us day-to-day folks, we go, I'm gonna just put in 100 hours of grind inside that box, and then maybe like, I don't know, 28 hours of sleep in a week. And now I got 40 hours a week of other stuff. I put like 19 of those to Instagram, and what else is left? That's the wrong way to live life, obviously. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at your planning for your week as if you're painting a beautiful picture. So there's a guy named Robin Sharma, and he's very famous. The first book I ever read of Robin Sharma was The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. And I read that in 2000, before I had my first anxiety attack. And Robin, spoke in Toronto, and one of the things he said there was, your weekly planning should be a beautiful thing. A beautiful thing. Most people, do they even plan their week? No, in most cases. But even those folks that do usually plan it Sunday night, very rushed, and it's not given the attention that it deserves. So this little exercise that we're going to do here gives you a template for which you can build a beautiful week every single week. So what we do when we are building our business around our life, as we go back up to the original page here, is we don't start with work. We don't start with calls. We don't start with any of that stuff. We start with our family first. Brandon, it's Robin Sharma without the C. And he actually wrote the book, The 5 a.m. Club, which I disagree with him on, but regardless. So if you go back up to the perfect week formula with all the blue lines on it, this is basically my perfect week formula. So this is built to me, right? My life is not your life. Your life is not my life. We can have totally different plans and agree to be friends. Totally fine. But what I want you to think about on your schedule is stuff like family night, date night, workouts, all of the things that you live your life for that you say you're quote unquote too busy for. The whole idea of this perfect week formula came from my friend Bedros Keuilian. Bedros Keuilian lives down in California, down in Chino Hills, the thriving metropolis of Chino Hills. And Bedros runs a company called Fit Body Bootcamp. He has 500 franchisees out there with 800 locations, and he has 55 people in his headquarters in Chino Hills. And I would fly out to see Bedros, and we would run mastermind coaching programs. And at the end of, we ran them on Tuesday and Wednesday. And at the end of Wednesday, even though I had flown from Canada all the way down, we spent 2 days working, and it was like, man, we should go out for dinner or something. He would say, no, my friend, you're on your own tonight, because tonight it's date night. It was a non-negotiable on his calendar every single Wednesday, 5 o'clock. See you later, Craig. We'd be driving down the highway, Chino Hills Parkway, and he'd be like, you got to get out of the car, man. Like right on the side of the road. No, he didn't do that. But I mean, one night I did babysit for him because they didn't have a babysitter, and it was date night. Here I came all the way down from Canada to work with him, and he's making me be the babysitter. But it was when I saw him do that, I go, if this guy can be that busy and never miss a date night and never miss a workout, it's because those are non-negotiables on his calendar. Family time on Saturday and Sunday. Oh, okay, let me experiment with this. And I started flipping the script in my life from putting all the work on first to taking care of myself and my relationships and my health first. And I put that on the calendar. So what I want you to do right now is put on your family time, your exercise time on that blank piece of paper, that 7x7 grid. Put that stuff on the calendar first. That's all I want you to put on the calendar. When you're going over to see mom and have dinner with her, when you're having date night, when you go into the gym, and maybe one or two things where it's like, man, I really miss dance lessons, or I really miss laser tag, or I miss that. Like, I'm working so hard, I'm not doing any of that stuff. Or just Saturday afternoon, catch up with old friend for a couple hours. Put those things on the calendar first as non-negotiables. Now that's the key, because yeah, you can fill up an entire week of, oh, I want to go and watch The View for 3 hours every day. No, like we're putting things on that are non-negotiable. If you put them on this calendar, you literally cannot do them. So this is not for people who are like, yeah, I canceled date night again last night. I was too busy. If you put date night on here, you're lying to yourself. You're being a hypocrite, and that's going to lead to stress and anxiety. So you can't put it on here if you're going to negotiate it away. Put the things on here that you must have. And now we go back to our Amazon box, and you see, like if your Amazon box was like this, now you filled it 25%. And your Amazon box for the work hours has shrunk. And that's good, because that then forces you to be much more productive in your work hours. It forces you to be better with your scheduling. So if maybe you're taking a call at 11 and then you have a 2-hour break, and then it's like, no, listen, whatever I'm going to do something to convince people to operate by my schedule, where I take calls at 11, 12, 1, 2, and 3, not at 11, 2, and 6. Because that's like totally ruins your day. Like, what can you really do in that? So you got to figure out how to make that work. So after we've done putting on the family and fitness, you're probably thinking, okay, now I'm going to put my calls and my meetings on. Nope, we're not putting that on. Instead, what I want you to do now is look at 3 lines on the perfect week formula. The one at the top that says wake up, the second one from the bottom that says reverse alarm, and the third one that says bedtime. So again, this is 9 p.m. bedtime. I just made this up, okay? I don't care if you go to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't care if you go to bed at 7:30 at night. What matters is that you're designing this for your life. So you put bedtime, wake up time. I'll give you 2 things here. First, if you want to sleep better, the number 1 rule for having good sleep, number 1 rule, from the most popular sleep book of all time, Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. Number 1 sleep rule. You can ignore the 11 other rules that he has in the book if you follow this 1 rule. And that 1 rule is go to bed at the same time every night, get up at the same time every day. Our bodies are meant for routine, to eat at the same time, to exercise at the same time, to sleep at the same time. When we do that, it makes our life very smooth. It's very difficult for people to go to bed at the same time. But trust me, if you do that, you go to bed at the same time, you're going to have all day energy. When I started doing this at age 32, because my mentor told me about it at age 25, I ignored it for 7 years. And Monday, I was always dragging my butt. I had Sunday night anxiety about Monday morning, couldn't fall asleep Sunday night, woke up late Monday morning, very tired from the weekend. Also couldn't sleep on Sunday night because I slept in Sunday and Saturday morning because I went to bed so late Friday and Saturday. And it was just this absolute horrible, tired, fatigue. Finally, by like Wednesday, I was back. And then all of a sudden it's a weekend again. And I went through that cycle for years and years and years, underperforming in so many areas of life, and probably a contributor to the anxiety attacks as well. Now, the problem with putting those 3 lines on, everybody knows it's hard to get to bed on time. Always hard to get to bed on time. You've got kids, you've got Netflix, you've got your friends, you've got that 1 glass of wine turning into 3 glasses of wine. You've got Facebook, you got Instagram, you got Twitter, you got your phone. Like, it is very difficult to get to bed on time. And that's where the power of the reverse alarm comes in. The reverse alarm is an alarm you set on your phone an hour before your bedtime. So if you want to get to bed at 11, you set the alarm for 10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, the alarm goes off on your phone. You shut the phone down. You put it in airplane mode. You turn your television off. You turn your laptop off. All the electronics turned off. Now you're left with what I call old school activities, right? So you can talk to your kids. You can talk to your spouse. You can have a bath. You can have a shower. You can meditate. You can read. You can make your lunch. You can do the dishes. You can do any of those things because they do not stimulate your brain and keep you awake. In fact, if you lie down and read, you're probably going to be asleep in 20 minutes. That's how you get to bed on time. because so many people struggle in the morning. And the reason they struggle in the morning is because they couldn't get to bed on time. Everybody thinks the morning routine starts by getting up and like watching a YouTube motivational video or doing a cold plunge like Tony Robbins. No, your morning starts the night before. Your morning starts the night before. If you're not in bed on time, you've thrown away the next morning. So getting to bed on time is key. So those 3 lines go on there first. Now you're probably thinking, okay, now I'm going to put my calls on. No, you're not putting your calls on yet. The next thing we're going to focus on, you see at 5 o'clock on there, it says cutoff time and phone bed. Cutoff time and phone bed. The phone bed is essential. It's absolutely powerful for parents with young children. If you have young kids, you are not going to want to miss this. You're going to implement this. It's going to change your life. But I'll get to that in a second. First, we talk about the 3 habits of the cutoff time. I said that the morning begins the night before. The morning actually begins the afternoon before. Yeah, you got to get to bed on time. But if you don't know what you're going to be doing in the morning, well, you're going to be a little bit lost too. So there's 3 stages to the cutoff time activity that prepare you for a great morning. Step number 1 is called a brain dump. Get a scrap piece of paper, sit there. You know, if your last call is at 4 o'clock, then after that last call, you get a scrap piece of paper, you do a brain dump. All the things running through your head. You're like, oh, I got to pick the kids up tomorrow. I got to schedule, those 5 calls. I got to follow up with those 3 calls today that didn't pay. I got to do this. I got to study those 3 sessions from Mike. I got to do this. Oh man, I got like 18 things. Great. When it's out of your head, you're going to have way less stress. It's like most of us are walking around with, I once bought my friend the Death Star Lego for his son for Christmas. And I thought this is like the greatest gift ever. And he looked at me and he went, what are you doing? It's like 4,000 pieces. And so I gave him this like impossible thing. But most of us are walking around with a Lego box full of it's stuff that is not put together. And it's just a jumbled up mess in our head. Now, what you have to do is you have to spread those pieces out all over the table in order to get some clarity. Now, it doesn't solve the problem, but that's the brain dump, right? Spreading the pieces out over the table. So doing the brain dump gets all the junk out of your head. If you toss and turn at night, it's because you haven't done a brain dump 5 hours before bed, 3 hours before bed. I wouldn't do it an hour before bed, but I would do it like 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to even 6 hours before bed. Like if you do this at lunchtime, it's totally fine. But you got to get all that stuff out of your head or you're going to toss and turn and like, oh my gosh, I forgot to do this. Oh, I didn't make plans to go pick up the kids. Man, I didn't make that grocery list for tomorrow. And you're not going to sleep very well. And that's going to throw off your morning. So you do the planning. You do that brain dump first. Now, that's step 1. Step 2 is doing a priority to-do list. Brandon says, is this all in your book? Absolutely. It's all in the Perfect Week Formula book. Doing your to-do list in the morning, you're already too late. Because in the morning, you have the greatest discipline, willpower, and intention. Discipline, willpower, intention is greatest in the morning. So you wake up in the morning and you go, all right, let's figure out what I'm going to do today. You're taking a very simple, easy task and giving it your greatest discipline, willpower, and intention. So you're going to come up with like this list of all these like things that you want to do, but now your discipline is going to be cut in half. And you're never going to get around to do them. And you're going to go through this endless loop for the rest of your life and never get ahead. So, and Brandon, I'll just type in the perfectweekformula.com is the page to get the book for the cheapest. It's on Amazon too, though. But anyway, so the second thing after you do the brain dump is you do the priority to-do list. You may have written 18 things down on that list, but one of them has to be number 1. One of them. One of the things is most important. So you put that as the number 1 thing. And then most people get here, but they don't do the 3rd step, which is like the secret sauce of this. Now, first, before I reveal the 3rd step, I have to tell you that I'm a big believer in your subconscious mind doing work at night. Your subconscious mind going to work and solving your problems at night. So that number 1 activity, you go and you think, man, how can my brain get a little bit ahead on this so that when I wake up in the morning, I can attack this problem? And I know this because, again, I'm a writer of books. I would often, when I was a beginner at time ownership, I would write down, okay, I want to write chapter 2 tomorrow. And I would get up in the morning on time, energetic, creative, and I'd sit down on my computer, I'd open it up, and it would just say chapter 2 at the top. And I'd be like, I don't know what to write. And then, I'd go off and I'd start procrastinating. I'd start cleaning the house. And, I'm not very good at cleaning. I don't even know how to turn a broom on, but I'd be like cleaning the house because I didn't properly prepare to do my work in the morning. And then I realized, well, if I just wrote down 3 bullet points for chapter 2, now I had those things to work off of, and my brain would work off of those things at night. So when I woke up in the morning, it was like 1,500 words just shot out of my hands. And I wrote 1,500 word chapters in under an hour. It was insane. But it wouldn't have happened without that 3-step planning. In your business, it may be, okay, you do the brain dump. Priority is going to be preparing for calls, maybe doing the research, maybe figuring out how to customize your script for the individual based on the knowledge you have of them. And it's like, okay, I got to make sure I use that example. I got to make sure I offer this particular program. It could just be arranging that. If you're an entrepreneur, a leader of an organization, it may be preparing for meetings with your team and putting together the agenda properly. Or if you're a writer and course creator, then you would be doing something around creating content or creating copy for selling. So now you've got that end of day planning, which then combined with the right bedtime allows you to crush that morning. And the next thing you know, like 9 or 10 in the morning comes along and you're like, whoa, I'm done more work than I was doing in a day last month. That's what we're looking for. And it even goes for when we do have a lot of appointments throughout the day, because that preparation time in the morning allows, I have, like, on my to-do list, my Word document that I have all my to-do list stuff, I have in all caps, red highlighted in like 20-point font at the top of my to-do list, prepare. The most prepared person wins every time. And we all know, we've all gotten on a sales call before where we weren't fully prepared and we got our butt kicked. We all have been there in a meeting, a presentation, whatever it is. The most prepared person wins. And that cutoff time preparation makes you the most prepared person for the next day, so you win every day. Now, phone bed. The phone bed is a really, really cool little key here. And the phone bed, I was working with a client of mine. He owns a gym. He owns a t-shirt company down in California, down in San Jose. And he worked at the gym and he would come home at night and he'd have to like immediately do the transition from CEO or, business owner to super dad. And he'd be walking in, and if you have kids, we've all been there, paying attention to the phone, trying to pay attention to the kid. It never works. Never, ever in the history of working has it ever worked, right? So we said, you know what, Danny was his name. I said, Danny, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go home. You're going to walk in the house. Kids are going to run in. Daddy, they're so excited to see you. We're going to go, Danny, this is what you're going to do. You're going to say to your daughter, hey, it's time to put daddy's phone in the phone bed. So they took a little egg carton, they cut it in half, they put a little blanket, they put the phone in the egg carton, they put the blanket on it, and he leaves it there, and he goes and he spends time with his kids. Now, here's where something miraculous happens, is after about 20, 30 minutes of incredible quality time, his kids are done with them, right? They're in most cases, they're like, oh, I'm going to go play Legos, or I'm going to go play this, or I'm going to go do this. And now Danny is like, okay, cool. Well, I love you guys. And that was awesome. I guess I can go back to my phone and go through and, send some emails and end the day. And then I can put the phone away again and be present for dinner. So something like that. I'm a big believer. I'm like a old school, traditional, conservative, I like traditions, family traditions, stuff like that. So I'm a big believer in separation of work life and home life. Separation. No working when I'm at home with the family. No messing around during the day when I'm at work. And when you do that, you have the separation, you have the focus, you have the blocking and batching, you have the single-mindedness and not multitasking. You are more effective. You are more effective. You know, you'll find that you're really not working 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours a day when you're multitasking. You're really only working 6 hours a day. So why not just focus on 6 hours a day and be done with it and then go do something else? And that's what the phone bed helps you do. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to look at, we're still not going into the middle of the day. We're going to talk about your NUI work and self-care. NUI work is called non-urgent important activity. Non-urgent important activity. A great example of this is writing a book. You don't have to write a book today. It's not like if you don't write the book today, your business will fall apart. You can wait till tomorrow to start writing your book. But if you take that approach, I can wait till tomorrow to write my book forever, you'll never write your book. I'm sure that of all the people on here, some of you heard about this program while you had a full-time job. And you're like, yeah, I should study this program, but I can start tomorrow. I'm really busy today. I've got the urgent, important stuff that I have to focus on today. Checking email, checking social, seeing how many points LeBron scored last night. I got urgent, important activities all day long. And you never get around to the non-urgent, important activities. And all of a sudden, life passes us by. So in the morning, I highly encourage people to get up and as quickly as possible, based on the plan they made the day before, get into non-urgent, important work. Work that one of my friends, a guy named Ian Stanley, is a copywriter, and he said he calls these money later activities. Money later activities. They're activities that will not make you money today, but will make you money forever once the project is done. It could be writing a sales letter for a page. It could be developing amazing sales skills. It could be writing a book. It could be creating a course. That's a money later activity. You're not getting paid to do it now. But if you get good at it and you create something and get it out there, that thing, these books will make me money forever, just selling the book alone, let alone the clients that come in, the coaching clients that come in because they read the book that I wrote in 2015. We still get people signing up for our high ticket coaching program who read a book that I finished 5 years ago. That's a money later activity. Now, on the flip side, you're like, I'm not writing a book and I'm not creating a course. And, I just want to focus on my sales stuff. Well, it could be studying sales things, but it could be on the flip side, what's really important in your life that is not getting any time. Some people that I work with, listen, they've worked really hard for the last 30 years. They've put themselves last. They've raised a family. They've gotten their kids off to college. Now they're starting a second career, maybe in sales here, but they're overweight. Well, you know what? Your number one priority in life is to get your health back on track. So you're going to do it at this time. You're going to make time. It's non-urgent. You could like, I'll start my workout tomorrow. Sure, you could, or you could start it today. You could start it today. So it's non-urgent, but very important. I want you to do something, even if it's 15 minutes in the morning. And then the next thing you know, like writing a book, in 15 minutes, if you are a subject matter expert who can type at a decent pace, you can write 500 words in 15 minutes, 500 words, 6 days a week. In 10 weeks, you have a 30,000 word book, 15 minutes at a time. It's incredible. It's incredible what these things compound up into. So I want you to do that. Then you reward yourself with self-care. So if you're a journaling fan, if you're a meditation fan, if you're an exercise fan, don't do any of those things until you have done some work. I grew up on a farm, so I'm all about the work first, reward later. Delayed gratification is a key to success. So that's what I want to see you having in there as well. All right. Now you've earned the right to put your work on the calendar. Okay. We've taken that Amazon box of 168 hours and we filled it with more important stuff. And now what it's done is maybe it's left you with 43 hours, maybe it's left you with 37, maybe 51. You use those hours to become more efficient. In Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, he describes something as Parkinson's Law. A project expands to the time allotted to complete it. a great example of this is when we were in college or high school, someone said, okay, your essay is due on March 31st. Great, I'll do it March 31st at 9:00 at night. Now, if that person had said your essay is due on March 16th, you would have gotten that essay miraculously done on March 16th. But you just filled that time because the task had a late deadline. And it's the same with our days. If we open up 60 hours for work, we'll work 60 hours. But if anybody here has had a kid recently, you realize when you have your kid, you have to become more efficient. You no longer have time to be on 19 email lists, follow 737 people on Instagram, debate 19 people a week on Twitter. All that stuff gets cut. And you realize what a waste of time that was. So when you fill your work, your hours box with life, you now force yourself to be more efficient at the job you are doing. And that is where you can then put in your work throughout the day.
My question is, what is a book that you would recommend rereading?
I've got a few books that I recommend to everyone. Now, I would ask you, what is the goal of reading? Like, what do you want to get out of the books that you read?
Well, I'd like it to have a positive impact on me in some way, even if that's like opening my eyes to maybe a habit or something that I'm doing that's not necessarily beneficial to me. My ultimate goal with books is compounding my knowledge. And then when it comes to a book that I think is worthwhile for my day-to-day life, that's one that I add to the reread list.
Got it.
And your book is actually one of those.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, Perfect Week Formula is even better. And I'll tell you why quickly before. I'm going to give you 3 books, John. But Perfect Week Formula, I wrote that book after reading 500 Amazon reviews, speaking at multiple events, and getting all of these questions about why the perfect day formula wouldn't work for people. And I realized I had a lot of holes in it, which then allowed us to write the Perfect Week Formula because it became a more comprehensive book. So that was actually, like whenever somebody gives you feedback, you got to turn that feedback into getting better. So just a quick tip there. But John, the 3 books that I would recommend, these are going to be personal development mindset books. One of them is Tim Grover's book, Relentless. So Tim Grover was Michael Jordan's personal trainer. And my business career went like this, John. From 2000 to 2015, I sold fitness programs. And then I was done with that. I had been coaching business owners on the side since about 2007, but we decided to make it our full-time business. So we shut down a multi-million-dollar fitness business and had a very, very tough year in 2016. And I read Tim, like every morning I'd wake up and be like, man, there's not enough leads coming in. And like, oh, I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. But I would read 3 pages of Tim's book and I wouldn't even get, I was going to read like 20 or 30 minutes, but I would get through like 3 pages and I'd be like up and ready to run through a wall. So if anybody hits a dry spell in their sales or whatever and needs a pick me up, Relentless is fantastic for it. I have read that book 3 times and every time I read it, it makes me stronger. So that'll be great for everybody listening. There's some curse words in it and stuff. So, I mean, it's really entertaining. But just understand, the language does get a little rough. The second book is a book that if I was dictator of the world, I would force this book to be read by everybody before they were age of 18. And that's Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, just to show you, first of all, it shows you like, man, whatever you think that you're going through is tough is nothing compared to what people in history have gone through. But also it just shows you, the physical and mental capacity for people to struggle through and succeed is really enormous if you have the right mindset. So that's another book I'd recommend. I've read that probably 6 times. And then the final book, a book that really changed my life, which influenced me in writing the Perfect Day Formula, it's Viktor Frankl. And Frankl is Frankl and Victor with a K. And so the third book is a little book called The Art of Living by Sharon Labelle. And it's a translation of the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. So Epictetus has these big books, but she did this little translation. It's like this big. It's like as big as the Tao Te Ching book. And you read 1 page a day and it's like a horoscope. It's like, oh my God, that's exactly the solution I needed today. How did you know I was thinking about this? And it's just really good stoicism. And from that book, I got the idea: control what you can, cope with what you can't control, concentrate on what counts. And that is what became kind of the foundation for the perfect day formula. You control the morning. You have the greatest control over your morning. Cope with what you can't control, which is the chaos that comes to everybody in the afternoon. So have a plan to cope with the chaos, and then do all of that, have a very disciplined day so you can concentrate on what counts at night, which is often our families. So those 3 books, all quick reads, and ones that I have read multiple times in my life.
My goodness, the stuff you've dropped here today is particularly invaluable for me, because I'm definitely the ADD squirrel guy.
Yeah.
I can get distracted or sidetracked extremely easy, right? So yeah, I already.
Well, let me give you a big tip on that, Brandon, and everyone. Is a lot of my time management and overcoming distraction stuff is stolen from the nutrition world. And there's a guy who wrote this book called Mindless Eating. And a lot of us eat mindlessly. We don't eat when we're hungry. We eat because we walked past a bowl of M&Ms. It was sitting there and we're like, I like M&Ms. I'm going to eat some. And so what this guy found is, like, this is like real rocket surgery here. He found that if you have a bowl of M&Ms beside you, you're going to eat a lot. Duh. And then, but if you take that bowl of M&Ms and you move it across the room, you're going to eat fewer of them. Duh. You take that bowl of M&Ms, you put it in another room, and you put it up in a high cupboard, you're going to eat fewer of them. Duh. And if you take that bowl of M&Ms and not have it in the house at all, you're not going to eat any. So I was like, well, you know what? When we're bouncing around from social media site to social media site or phone or all that stuff, it's because we haven't removed them. So how can you build a fence around yourself, Brennan, so that you are not distracted? And for me personally, when I have to do something, I think of, like when I was in college, if I had to do something, the best way to get me to do something was to go to the library. Nobody was with me, go only with one book and one piece of paper and focus on one task. And it's very difficult to do now, right? Because you're sitting at your desk. So everybody, if you are sitting at your desk, take your arms out to the side and just rotate around, right? All the way around. So you make a big circle, right? And everything within your arm's reach is a distraction bomb. It's going to blow up, right? So when you're supposed to be focusing on a sales script or writing something, anything that you can grab is a distraction. So I take my phone and I do 4 levels of turning it off. I put it in airplane mode. I physically turn it off. I put it in another room, and I put it in a desk drawer in another room. And that way it's far away from me. And I don't get distracted by it. Then you may have to turn off your Wi-Fi, or you may have to use some of these website blockers that stop you from going to Facebook or whatever it is. Like, you just have to build this fence around yourself as if you were like an animal that needs to be protected from the wolves that are here to steal your time. And when you do that, it doesn't solve everything, but it solves a lot. And then the last thing from a book by James Clear. James Clear wrote this book called Atomic Habits. And one of the biggest changes in changing any habit is changing your personal identity. So if you think like, oh man, I'm just the type of person who can never lose weight. If you repeatedly tell yourself that, that's your identity. You are a person who cannot lose weight. So every January, that person starts a weight loss program. They will never lose weight because their identity is associated with a person who cannot lose weight. But if you switch that to, I'm the type of person, I'm a healthy person who eats really well and doesn't overeat and exercises regularly. That's who I am. That's the type of person I am. Okay, great. You're going to have a much better chance of success. So you are not a distracted person. You don't have ADD. You are a type of person who can focus on what matters. And if you start doing that and you start setting yourself up for success, you build that confidence around that, and you start living in alignment with that, all of a sudden you go, wow, I really am. And it's fake it till you make it. I don't care if that's what you call it. That's what it is. That'll help you get to that position.
So what would you recommend for, so, obviously us in here, we're depending on our phones for what we do. We use our phones for sales, contacting our leads, all day, every day. That's a big part of it. So with that being said, what would you recommend as far as, I know you're talking about removing your phone or remove that as a distraction. So what would you recommend with that?
There's actually a function in screen time on people's phones. I've never used it, but one of my clients was telling me about it. There's a function in the screen time thing on the Apple phone, and maybe there's something on the Android that's similar, that can disable your apps between certain hours. So, it's like, hey, Instagram is not an enabled app on my phone. I'm just using Instagram as an example, not necessarily because you use it, but you can disable all of these things. Or you can, I've had clients, young male entrepreneurs who would spend a lot of time on Tinder, and they just deleted Tinder from Monday to Friday or Monday to Thursday or whatever it was. And you just have to do these things. You have to take these extreme measures, because, and it's not a reflection of you or your personal discipline. It's a reflection of the fact, everyone, that this phone, every single day that you wake up and you pick up your phone, it's you against 1,000 PhDs from MIT whose entire livelihood is to make you more addicted to things on your phone. We send our best and brightest to Silicon Valley to work for companies to make you addicted to this phone. And if you wake up and think, well, I'm going to have discipline and beat these guys, you're going to lose every single day. But if you say, I don't like the rules these guys make me play by, so I'm going to change the rules of the game and delete these things and do this, get a second phone for calls so that there's, like a flip phone, if it works really fine, great. You have to do these extreme measures in order to win at the battle of attention.
I'm one of the crazy buggers that work for this amazing company, Limelight Media, that actually work during the night, not during the day. So tell me, how could I implement your perfect formula for a week when I'm working nights, not days?
Well, I mean, it's a great question, but at the end of the day, the foundational principles remain the same. And it's not about the time that you get up, it's about what you do with the time that you are up. So if you just look at like, okay, well, what are my sleeping hours? And so the thing that I implemented there, like the 5 a.m. wake up and the 9 p.m. bedtime, like those were just arbitrarily drawn on there. I could have done the same thing. Like I never worked a midnight shift when I worked in those factories, but I did work the 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift for an entire summer. And when I did that, I would get up a little bit later in the morning. I would work on my number one priority for school, because I was doing a bit of school in the summer. Then I would go to the gym. Then I get ready for work and go and crush it at work. And I would just, use the same principles, even though the hourly schedule was different, but the fundamentals still work. Was there something specific on there that you just like, I just don't understand how this one thing could work?
Look, I mean, it's trying to follow a schedule. I mean, it's been more part of my whole work life for the last 21 years. It's been more predominant now than ever.
Yeah.
But I mean, understanding the concepts that obviously you put together and is working insanely well for a lot of people. It's just that I do work. My hours are very, very different to a normal person, Monday to Friday or Monday to Sunday. I just go from, say, 10 p.m. at night through to about 8, 9 a.m. in the morning, my time. And then obviously, San Diego time is very, very different. But then obviously on the weekends, I do a transition. I turn my sleeping clock around to try and make sure I spend quality time with my family.
Yeah.
So I was just...
It is. I mean, I mean, that's a tough situation to be in with that, but it's you do the best you can based on the foundational principles, and certainly don't sweat the small stuff, and understand, like, it's like somebody who has a 6-month-old baby. Like, some of these rules are going to be thrown out the window because your number one priority is making sure that baby survives every day. And so if you're not able to get magic time today, that's all right. It's another thing that I do teach people. Like, not every day has to look the same.
Yeah.
People who are sitting there going, oh, well, and I know my magic time is 9 a.m., but every Monday and Tuesday I have meetings at 9 a.m. Okay, fine. But if you can get it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, great. If you can't get it every day, don't worry about it. And one other thing that I'll mention is, I'm a big believer, like for me personally, I front load the week. Monday, Tuesday, I work extra hours so that Thursday, Friday, I work very few hours. So not every day has to look the same. You know, we were raised, you go to work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, kind of in a corporate world. That no longer exists. So if I can rearrange my schedule to better suit my lifestyle with a front-loaded week or 2 to 3 12-hour days so that I can have more time off, and, you know, communicate that to my family that I'm making this sacrifice, and if we make this sacrifice, we can have these rewards, that'd be a great place.
Guys, what is up? It's your boy Mike Barron. Thank you for checking out the channel. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and if you don't, I'm gonna come through this computer screen and close you up my damn self. Let's go. I'll see you at the top.